Salam sejahtera para pelajar semua. Oke, sekarang kita pergi kepada topik awal kita di dalam spiritual and moral development of young children. Okay. So introduction to the spiritual and moral development. Spiritual and moral development is a vital dimension of early childhood education, and it's shaping children understanding of self, others, and the world. And it is closely linked to emotion, social, and cognitive development. So in early childhood education is a critical period for nurturing values, empathy, gratitude, and a sense of connectedness about the spiritual and moral. So the end say or the conclusion um, for these words is spiritual and moral development shape children understanding of self, others, and world. Now let us see the definition of spiritual development and moral development. For spiritual development, it's referred to the child growth in understanding of meaning, purpose, and connecting with self, others, nature, and possibly a higher being. So that is the spiritual development, giving a understand of meaning, purpose, and connecting to self, to our own self, to others, to our surrounding, and most probably uh, to our God, what we believe. uh. And moral development, it's involved learning the difference between right or wrong, about fairness, about empathy, and always making ethical choices. If there is a dilemma, moral, we need to make a decision. So when come to the decision making, the right and wrong must be applied. The fairness and also the empathy, because empathy means we understand others, not only for ourselves, for others as well. And there are few theories who describe about moral and spiritual development. John Piaget, Lawrence Kohlberg, Eric Erikson, James Fowler, and Maria Montessori. And according to John Piaget, morality involves from heterogeneous, yaitu rules based to autonomous or intent-based reasoning. That is why when we still kids, we always hear rules. We always given rules. We must do this. We cannot do that, because that is the way we learn about moral according to John Piaget. And that is the first level until we start to understand about what is moral, until level 2 and level 3. And for the Lawrence Kohlberg talked about moral development in form like this. We see the picture, the stages of moral reasoning. At age 3 to 7, moral reasoning based on reward and punishment. Okay, so this one called pre-conventional. And for the moral reasoning here, it's more on self-interest of the children. As we know, children is memang very selfish. Then we teach them how to uh, we teach them about the moral to be understand others, because the nature is for the children is self-centered. And when they learn about moral, uh, about do this on cannot do that, meaning to say they want to avoid punishment, be a good girl, follow rules. And the the, s- the second stage is conventional, age 3 to 13. And this one is from this stage is more on external ethics, like I said just now. The children want to be seen as good girl or good boy, so they want to uh, display or want to show to the adult or their parents that they are good. And here we see that it's applied for the law and order morality. And the next stages is post-conventional during adulthood. This moral reasoning is based on the personal ethic. It's about social contract. It's about principles. What kind of personality you want people know you? You are someone that hold to principle. If you say A, you display A. You act like A. Jadi kira macam aku janji lah. And the next theory, according to Erik Erikson, so Erik Erikson, it's more on trust, autonomy, and initiative contribute to the moral awareness. And we already come across many times about Erikson's stage of psychosocial development. Let us see the stages here, from trust to mistrust. This one is during the infant. Then during the toddler, autonomy versus shame and doubt. During preschooler, initiate versus guilt. During their primary school, maybe industry and inferiority. Next, identity and role during teenager. And during young adult, they are starting about uh, identity and role confusion after the intimacy and isolation. And after middle-aged adult, during uh, maybe during your age, generativity and stagnation, and older adult, integrity and despair. And all of this showing how the stages develop from infant to adulthood about the moral awareness. And the third one, James Fodler. James Fodler talk about faith development, from intuitive to projective faith from age 3 to 7. Let us see the video here to help us more understand about what flawless stages of faith development.
Fowler's stages of faith development.
Wait, let me continue. I want to display the video, so bear with me.
Fowler's stages of faith development. James W. Fowler was an American theologian who was professor of theology and human development at Emory University. He was director of both the Center for Research on Faith and Moral Development and the Center for Ethics until he retired in 2005. He was a minister in the United Methodist Church. Fowler is perhaps best known for his developmental model based on faith, which he wrote about in his book titled Stages of Faith: The Psychology of Human Development and the Quest for Meaning. According to Fowler, there are 7 primary stages of faith in the life of the individual. Let me briefly discuss them below. Stage 0, primal undifferentiated faith, ages birth to 2. This stage is very much like Erik Erikson's first stage of trust versus mistrust. Here, the baby acquires experiences from the outer environment that either instill in him a feeling of trust and assurance, from being comforted, living in a secure and stable environment, and experiencing a sense of consistency and care from parents. These personalized experiences, according to Fowler, essentially translate into feelings of trust and assurance in the universe and harmony with the divine. Conversely, experiences of parental or environmental neglect and/or abuse at this stage of development can result in the formation of feelings of mistrust and fear with respect to the universe and the divine, sowing the seeds for later doubt and existential angst. This stage also compares with Jean Piaget's sensorimotor stage of cognitive development, where thinking takes place in and through the body. Stage 1, Intuitive Projective Faith, ages 3 to 7. Children at this stage have acquired language and the ability to work with symbols to express thoughts. Children at this stage don't develop formalized religious beliefs, but are instead affected by the psyche's exposure to the unconscious, and by a relatively fluidity of patterns of thought. Faith at this stage is experimental and develops through encounters with stories, images, the influence of others, a deeper intuitive sense of what is right and wrong, and innocent perceptions of how God causes the universe to function. This stage aligns with Piaget's stage of pre-operational thinking, that is, lacking consistent logical mental structures. Stage 2, Mythic Literal Faith, ages 7 to 12. Children at this stage have a belief in justice and fairness in religious matters, a sense of reciprocity in the workings of the universe. For example, doing good will result in a good result, doing bad will cause a bad thing to happen. And an anthropomorphic image of God, for example, a man with a long white beard who lives in the clouds. Religious metaphors are often taken literally, thus leading to misunderstandings. Thus, passages in the Holy Bible that say, "If, then, you obey the commandments that I enjoin upon you this day, loving the Lord your God and serving him with all your heart and soul, I will grant the rain for your land in season, the early rain and the late. You shall gather in your new grain and wine and oil. I will also provide grass in the fields for your cattle, and thus you shall eat your fill." If these promises don't come to pass in the world, then a person at this stage might feel cheated or disappointed in God. This stage aligns with Piaget's concrete operational stages of cognitive development, where true logical thinking begins to develop in the child's mind. Stage 3, Synthetic Conventional Faith, ages 12 to adult. This stage is characterized by the identification of the adolescent adult with a religious institution, belief system, or authority, and the growth of a personal religious or spiritual identity. Conflicts that occur when one's beliefs are challenged are often ignored because they represent too much of a threat to one's faith-based identity. This stage, and all subsequent stages, correspond to Piaget's stage of formal operational thinking, thus making it possible for the adolescent or adult to perceive the divine as an abstract or formless manifestation. Stage 4, Individuative Reflective Faith, ages mid-20s to late 30s. This stage is often characterized by angst and struggle as the individual takes personal responsibility for her beliefs or feelings. Religious or spiritual beliefs can take on greater complexity and shades of nuance, and there is a greater sense of open-mindedness, which can at the same time open up the individual to potential conflicts as different beliefs or traditions collide. Stage 5, Conjunctive Faith, Midlife Crisis. A person at this stage acknowledges paradoxes and the mysteries attendant on transcendent values. This causes the person to move beyond the conventional religious traditions or beliefs he may have inherited from previous stages of development. A resolution of the conflicts of this stage occurs when the person is able to hold a multidimensional perspective that acknowledges truth as something that cannot be articulated through any particular statement of faith. Stage 6, Universalizing Faith, or Enlightenment, later adulthood. This stage is only rarely achieved by individuals. A person at this stage is not hemmed in by differences in religious or spiritual beliefs among people in the world, but regards all beings as worthy of compassion and deep understanding. Here, individuals walk the talk of the great religious traditions. For example, the kingdom of God is within you. One good example of this stage in the life of an individual is the life of Count Leo Tolstoy, who in his later years emphasized the importance of equality among people, asceticism in one's style of living, and the practice of compassion for all.
This isn't just any chat, it's ClickUp chat. Sure, you can tag your team, ask questions, and even drop an emoji. But the real magic is how it connects to the rest of my work. I can tag a task, a doc, or a whiteboard.
Oke, kita teruskan. Itu tadi, berkaitan dengan James Fowler's, Stages of Faith Development, yang dia telah terangkan beberapa stages, dan bagi kita pendidikan all kanak-kanak, kita fokus kepada intuitive and projective faith. Dan seterusnya, berdasarkan yang diterangkan oleh Maria Montessori, memang kamu familiar dengan nama ini kan? So kalau kita lihat di sini, bagi Maria Montessori, spirituality emerge through order, beauty, and respect for life. Itu adalah dia punya slogan lah yang dia telah gariskan untuk moral, berkaitan dengan moral development for early childhood. So ini kata-kata yang famous yang kita nampak dalam gambar ni, yang dia pernah katakan, iaitu the child is endowed with unknown powers which can guide us to a radiant futures. If what we really want is a new world, then education must take at its aim the development of this hidden possibility. Meaning to say, of course kita tidak tahu apa future dia. Tetapi kalau kita mau future yang radiant, yang baik, education itulah dia punya keywords, dia katakan. So the importance of spiritual development in early childhood, kita cuba tengok kategori sini, aspek dia dan description. For the personal growth, the importance, the first one, personal growth, iaitu build self-awareness, empathy, and moral responsibility. So this is the first point, aspect, the first aspect. The second one, the emotional balance, which is encourages peace, gratitude, and resilience. Biar bagaimanapun sesuatu yang melanda dia, tetapi dia tetap berdaya tahan. Itulah yang kita mau, the emotional balance among individual. Then we teach them as early as when they are still kids. Kita sebagai cikgu preschool inilah yang penting untuk dapat enforcekan itu dalam kalangan kanak-kanak. Dan aspek kepentingan yang seterusnya adalah menurut ataupun dalam social harmony. Why social harmony it is important? Because we want to foster kindness, cooperation, or respect for the diversity. We are not living alone in the forest, di dalam gua, but uh, we are living and alive with other people surround us, our family, our neighbors, our friends, our community, our schools, our church, our masjid, and so on. So, the importance of spiritual development ini adalah to cater this aspect, the social harmony. And the fourth one, the holistic education, it integrates individual, emotional, or moral and spiritual intelligence. So, as an educator who integrate spiritual and moral values, help children from meaning in life experiences and develop respect to others' belief and culture. Kita bukan mendidik kanak-kanak ini untuk uh, being selfish, percaya kepada apa yang dia percaya saja. Because like we say just now, we are living with our neighbor, our community, and our neighbor or in our community maybe it's not same religion like us, but we still respect us. So as parents, as a first home for the children to learn, and as school the second home for them, we educator need to um, teach them this. Walaupun tidak diajar secara formal barangkali, tetapi dalam setiap mata pelajaran kita try to hubung kaitkan aspek-aspek ini di dalam mata pelajaran yang mereka pelajari. Selain daripada pendidikan moral atau pendidikan Islam yang diajar secara formal di sekolah. So, kalau kita lihat daripada perkataan tadi itu, why it is important, kalau kita lihat di sini, to create the personal awareness and the responsibility and involve understanding the connection between personal and social behavior and well-being, and it encourage people to make constructive and ethical decision and act on them. Kalau kita lihat dalam raja ini, dalam dalam diri kita ini, of course we are many kind of personality or many kind of responsibility, but we are built with self-regulation, self-education to help sejahtera, to help to boost our well-being. So we are not self-centered, even though we really want our well-being, kita punya kesejahteraan itu terjaga, but in the same time, we want to make sure that our surrounding, our neighbor also hidup sejahtera sama dengan kita. Okay. The spiritual potential of a childhood awakening to the fullness of life. Dalam sini kita lihat bahwa the children have an inner capacity for the wonder, awe, and curiosity about life. They experience spiritually through play, imagination, and nature exploration, emotional connection with families and friends and teacher, or creative expression through arts, music, and storytelling. And this is actually all the things that we can enforce for during childhood, because we know that starting when they are still young, we want them to understand about the spiritual things, the understanding about spiritual. So the inner capacity is it's something that is already built in dalam diri seseorang, dalam diri kanak-kanak. Sudah sudah sedia ada. We are inborn to it. What kind of things that we inborn to it, like perasaan ingin tahu, baik hati, perkara-perkara yang positif itulah sudah ada dalam diri kita, dalam diri kanak-kanak. Spirituality itu sudah ada. Then kada enforce lagi based on our own belief like Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, or sebagainya. So kita kena tahu inilah yang perkara yang sudah sedia ada dalam diri kanak-kanak itu dapat diboostkan melalui aktiviti-aktiviti seperti yang kita sebutkan tadi. So ini adalah peranan kita sebagai guru. We encourage the wonder, the curiosity among children. Mereka ada perasaan ingin tahu, mereka tahu bahwa mereka dia kita encourage dia punya, we give them situation to encourage them, to encourage their curiosity. Bila mereka ada perasaan ingin tahu kan, mereka akan menggali untuk mendapatkan jawaban. Jangan kita halang. Kamu masih ingat Madam bercerita tentang bagaimana kanak-kanak lain semasa Madam masih kanak-kanak, mereka keronyokan Madam punya lukisan sebab Madam melukis 2 matahari. Mereka percaya bahwa jika sekiranya kita melukis 2 matahari, dunia akan terlalu panas dan dunia akan kiamat. So that is the innate, the belief that already have dalam diri mereka. So perasaan ingin tahu itu sudah ada. So tidak semestinya kalau tidak semestinya gambar yang sedemikian seperti apa pengalaman yang saya kongsikan itu kan bermakna mereka bertahu ada kuasa besar, ada kuasa yang lebih besar yang menguasai dunia. 1 matahari sudah cukup, because the reality is yes like that. Tetapi jika 2 matahari, dunia akan semakin panas, merah, seperti lava, dan that is what dia believes. Walaupun kami generasi X, those days belum ada digital lagi kan. So as a educator also, we provide reflection and quiet time for our student. And kita sendiri, we provide ourselves the reflection and quiet time. This is very valuable to apply. Kita sentiasa buat reflection dan kita ada saat teduh atau saat hening untuk kita lihat apa yang kita sudah buat. Contohnya pada malam hari kita buat reflection, kita hening sejenak, kita hening sebentar, kita ingat semula apa yang kita lakukan sepanjang hari ini dalam saat teduh. Untuk kita melihat adakah kita telah berbuat baik, adakah kita telah menyiapkan misi visi yang kita sudah ada sebelum ini. Okay, so kita provide reflection and quiet time, meaning to say beside the personal matter just now, during class also we can do that to our student. We do the mindfulness activity. Kita bagi latihan pernapasan kepada mereka ketika berada di kelas. Jangan terlalu kelang kabut mengajar. Mau habiskan silabus. Tidak perlu. Tetapi ambillah masa-masa untuk mengajar anak-anak ini tentang saat-saat teduh, saat-saat hening ini untuk apa? Supaya mereka pun belajar bernafas, tentang latihan pernafasan tadi mereka belajar untuk bernafas. Itu sangat penting. And we also use open-ended question. Tujuan dia adalah untuk explore meaning. Ini satu contoh yang Madam bagi di sini. What do you think makes people happy? Kalau saya tanya soalan yang sama kepada semua pelajar, masing-masing mempunyai jawaban yang berbeza. Okay? So ini sebenarnya akan create lagi thinking abstrak, pemahaman abstrak seseorang kanak-kanak tentang kuasa besar. Ada kuasa yang lebih besar di dunia ini yang menguasai muka bumi ini. So use open-ended question. So innate and personal nature of spiritual. Innate apa maksud dia? Means a quality or ability that is present from birth rather than learn or acquire after birth. Apa yang Madam sebut tadi itu apa yang sudah ada dalam diri seorang kanak-kanak. So spiritual growth is individual. Of course, it's individual. So every child's experience a unique pengalaman about spiritual growth. And some children express it through kindness, and maybe others through creativity or questioning. So kalau kita merujuk kembali teori Sigmund Freud about ego dan superego. Kalau Sigmund Freud dia melihat ini negatif. Nafsu itu adalah sesuatu yang negatif. Tetapi bagaimanakah sesuatu yang negatif itu diprojekkan menjadi sesuatu yang positif. Nafsu itu seperti id, keinginan dalaman. Jadi sebagai contoh, seorang kanak-kanak yang selalu memberontak id. Jadi macam mana dia projectkan dia. Kita mengajar anak-anak ini untuk projectkan dia punya id tersebut, atau yang selalu disebut sebagai nafsu sebelang tadi itu. Bagaimana kita projectkan, maybe kita bagi dia something untuk dia operate. Kalau kanak-kanak kita bagilah dia clay, tanah liat, apa itu, polystyrene, apa itu? Yang polystyrene, yang macam tanah liat tuh bang. Ada Pak, tapi Madam tidak ingat. Itu dough tuh yang macam tepung tuh kan, kita bagi dia clay tuh kita bagi dia. So daripada dia memberontak, membaling sana sini, kita bagi dia itu biar dia do something about it. Be creative. Jadi mungkin dia akan main tanah liat apa yang dia bentuk dari di sana. Dia projectkan dia punya id itu membentuk benda-benda melalui clay. Mungkin dia buat pasu, mungkin dia buat binatang, harimau, whatever yang dia buat. Itulah memprojekkan something yang negatif itu. Kalau dibiarkan, mungkin dia akan melakukan masalah-masalah disiplin. Ataupun ya perkara-perkara yang akhirnya akan mencederakan dia. So this kind of things yang kita kena alert, ataupun kenapa kita perlu nurturekan itu among kanak-kanak. So daripada berbuat baik, creativity, menyoal, itu semua adalah teknik-teknik yang boleh kita gunakan untuk build, untuk growthkan mereka punya spiritual. So dia punya key principle di sini, is not ataupun we must avoid imposed belief instead of nurture exploration. You Islam, you mau semua pelajar masuk Islam. You Christian, semua pelajar masuk Kristen. It cannot be like that. We must avoid imposing our belief. Dalam counseling juga begitu. Sebab every individu dia unik kan. Jadi kita tidak boleh imposkan kita punya kepercayaan kepada dia. Tetapi the general nilai-nilai murni itu adalah cross culture. So we help them to explore daripada persekitaran. This religion teach kindness. This religion also teach kindness. Seterusnya, respect culture, cultural and religious diversity. Kita tidak boleh mengajar anak-anak ataupun pelajar kita pentingkan diri sendiri. We're proud of our religion, but in the same time, we respect other people's religions. Malah ada juga yang tidak beragama. Mereka ikut adat istiadat mereka. Macam animisme lah. Macam dulu-dulu punya orang tua. Mereka percaya bahwa ada kuasa yang lebih besar. Tetapi tidak ada God, mereka tidak digambarkan melalui Christianity or Islam or Buddhism or Hinduism, tetapi mereka gambarkan Tuhan mereka itu melalui alam sekitar, Padi memberi makan, memberi kehidupan. Itulah orang dusun dulu, orang dusun Kadazan dusun merayakan pesta menuai. It's their culture. Jadi adalah si Sunduvan ini, itu spirit of the padi yang berkorban supaya air, Tuhan menurunkan air, menurunkan hujan supaya padi dapat ditanam. Itu adalah tindakan Sunduvan atau good spirit dalam budaya orang Kadazan dusun. Dan seterusnya adalah support personal meaning through making rather than religious instruction. Kalau kita nampak aktiviti-aktiviti di sekolah for preschool, banyak aktiviti yang merayakan pesta menuai contohnya, hari raya contohnya, Christmas, mereka displaykan bentuk-bentuk pakaian dan sebagainya. So mereka blended di sana untuk mereka memahami. Instead of give instruction, tidak boleh itu, tidak boleh ini dan sebagainya. Malah nanti ada yang cakap, it's not my religion, I don't want to follow. So we didn't teach about the religion literally. Itu adalah tanggung jawab dalam sekolah agama masing-masing. Tetapi we as a teacher generally we teach a good things, a good nilai, a good values to our student beyond religion. Okay, so this is the things that we always say to our student: being a good person. What is this? Being a good person. So moral development focuses on understanding and practicing value such as honesty, compassion, respect, and responsibility. And all these, contoh dia, being a good person. Dalam kita punya pendidikan moral, subjek pendidikan moral yang kamu pernah belajar dulu, dari 16 kan nilai-nilai itu. Ini antaranya lah yang ada di sana. Okay, so we want to be a good person. So if we understand the 16 values for Malaysia contohnya kan yang kita belajar itu, if we apply it, we are a good person. Jadi kita belajar itu sebenarnya kita dedakan kepada kanak-kanak itu to build them, untuk bentuk, to shape them to be a good person. So how we do it? So as an educator, model a good teacher, good behavior. Okay? Jadi orang bilang role model. Itu ketam mengajar anak dia berjalan lurus, tapi dia sendiri mengajar miring kan? Macam mana itu boleh berlaku? Meaning to say, do the talk. You talk it, you do your talk. So model good behavior. Use stories and role play to discuss moral dilemma. Banyak contoh-contoh situasi. Maybe we create situation for our children yang adanya konflik di sana. Then ask them apa yang mereka punya pendapat tentang situasi tersebut. So di sana kita akan memperoleh pelbagai jawaban from them. Jadi daripada pelbagai jawapan itu, our open-ended question, we get the very rich data or answers from our student, and terjadinya Q&A. Kita tanya, dorang jawab, dan mungkin dorang tanya kita dan kita jawab, dan itu berlakunya two ways. Dalam situasi-situasi yang sedang begini, mengajar anak-anak ini untuk understand about apa yang perlu seseorang lakukan jika berlakunya sesuatu masalah ataupun sesuatu dilema. We respect others. Contoh sebagai satu contoh, we want people to come. We are celebrating Christmas. We want people to come to our open house. And how we want the Muslim friend come to our house? Of course, we respect apa mereka punya belief kan, bahwa untuk makanan itu contohnya seperti ayam perlu disembelih. So, we call people to sembelih the ayam secara yang halal. Or we buy chicken yang halal, yang memang tertera halal di sana. Then why we do this? Because we respect others. We respect. We want our Muslim friend come to our house during Christmas. So this is among others that we can do to sustain the harmony among us, among neighborhood, among community. Itu juga secara tidak langsung we reinforce the positive action by helping, sharing, forgiving. Dalam agama masing-masing ada belief how to apply forgiveness atau forgiving. Tetapi secara innate-nya, secara semula jadinya, kita memang perlu berdamai dengan orang. Dan kalau orang salah, kita maafkan mereka. Itu yang mau kita tanamkan dalam diri kanak-kanak. Okay? So for example, as a teacher, we praises a child for converting a sad peers. Ada kanak-kanak yang mungkin dia pegang, dia gosok-gosok belakang seorang kanak yang menangis karena sedih kan. Mungkin kanak-kanak itu tiba-tiba pergi peluk sebab dia biasa kalau dia menangis mama dia peluk. So di sini kita bagi pujian jika anak-anak display attitude sebegini. Meaning to say, we reinforcing the empathy and the kindness, because the empathy is the understanding of others, not selfish. The kindness, the sense of purpose. The children develop a sense of purpose when they feel valued and capable. Understand that their action affects others, and engage in activities that makes a difference. For example, helping care for the plants or animal. So every individual will help them to have the sense of purpose. Oh, kalau saya pergi join itu camping, apa purpose saya untuk pergi join itu camping? If I remember, kalau saya ingat semula during my childhood, my upbringing, secara tidak langsung actually my parents ajar ini dalam setiap anak-anak dia. I'm not showing off, but this is the sharing. Dalam kami adik-beradik 8 orang, setiap individu-individu itu ada peranan dia sendiri. So this is the sense of purpose. Dan setiap individu itu contribute something to the family, to the big family. Walaupun mungkin kerja ataupun peranan dia itu kecil saja. Contoh, macam kami dulu. Anak pertama kan, dia masak lauk. Anak kedua, masak nasi. Sebab senang masak lauk ni susah sikit. Anak ketiga, kemas tempat tidur. Anak keempat dan so on. Dan yang saya masih ingat, yang bungsu baru berumur berapa waktu? Tahun 1 kah? Dia punya peranan buang sampah. Kami tinggal di flat, di apartemen. Si anak yang bungsu tuh akan ambil tong sampah yang dia di rumah. Dia akan turun ke bawah, pergi buang sampah di tempat sampah yang besar. Dan setiap individu ada peranan. Itu untuk tugas pagi-pagi. Untuk tugas petang lain lagi. Dan tugas yang every time yang tidak pernah tidak, yaitu each and every individu basuh pinggan sendiri. Itu parent saya ajar. Bermakna mama dan bapak pun kena basuh pinggan. Duduk dalam bulatan bila makan, sharing, okay, walaupun sedikit saja lauk itu, sharing. So itu adalah first home yang ibu bapak ajarkan pada kita, dan kita sudah jadi cikgu how we want to develop that among our student. So bila mereka memahami tindakan mereka akan menghargai. Like now, saya sudah tua, but I always appreciate what my parents taught us during us masih kecil. Ringan kerja, sisi pagi lain, sisi petang lain. Sebab kami tinggal di flat kan, so masing-masing ada kerja. Tapi kerja saya selalu kalau waktu petang join mama pergi siram sayur. Jadi bila pergi siram sayur, saya ambil peluang lah pergi main bola tampar di tepi kebun kami, di compound, di barrack police compound. So it's really enjoy when I reminisce, think back long ago punya kisah. So it's really teach about how to be a good person. Every individual have value in the eyes of each individual. Okay, so the teaching strategy encourage goal setting. Kita menggalakkan pencapaian matlamat. Buat sampai dapat, jangan mengalah. What can we do to make our class a happy place? Kita bertanya-tanya, jadi itu pelajar macam-macam jawaban dia. Kita realisasikan. Susun buku dengan baik. Oke, jom susun buku. Kutip sampah. Oke, kutip sampah dan segala macam. Jadi mereka do the talk and use reflective discussion. Why do we help others? And celebrate contribution and effort. Okay. Peaceful disposition. What is peaceful disposition? It's mean having a calm, gentle, and a kind attitude or character, both inside and in how a person related to others. So ini juga kita mau build dalam diri anak-anak. Okay, so in the context of spiritual and moral development of young children, it's refer to a child's ability to stay calm and patient in daily situation. This is the peaceful disposition. Or show kindness and forgiveness instead of anger or revenge. Or seek a peaceful solution when there is a conflict. And feel inner peace. Being happy, content, and emotionally balanced. So this is what we want our student to experience for the welfare, well-being of our children. So spiritual education encourage the inner peace, the self-regulation, and the conflict resolution. This is what spiritual education encourage. Then where to promote peace in young children, there is few or banyak strategi yang boleh kita gunakan. Mindfulness nih macam tadi lah yang saya ajak kamu untuk buat saat teduh. Kita berpikir apa yang kita sudah buat sepanjang hari tadi, apa yang sudah tercapai, apa yang belum tercapai. This is the mindfulness in the state of calm. Kita punya inner peace. Dan dia dijalankan bersama dengan aktiviti pernafasan. Tarik nafas melalui hidung secara dalam-dalam, hembuskan secara perlahan, buat beberapa kali. So the mindfulness and breathing activity ini mewujudkan ketenangan dalam diri kita secara personal kalau kita apply, and dalam diri kanak-kanak. Peace corner or reflection space in classroom. We want to build certain corner. Satu corner itu peace corner. Satu corner itu reflection corner. This reading corner. Masing-masing anak ada corner. So untuk kita mewujudkan peaceful among belajar. Jadi mungkin kalau kita ada corner-corner tersebut, anak-anak itu mau tutup mata barangkali, mau tutup mata, mau damai lah, mau rehat lah, dia pergi duduk di corner reflection space. Mungkin kita ada di sana reflection space. Ada mungkin dia punya ada music, little music yang pelajar kita duduk damai di situ. So they will experience it. Dan seterusnya conflict resolution. Kita bagi dia situasi, kita mau supaya jika terjadi sesuatu keadaan yang memang berlakunya konflik tersebut, kita terus bertindak untuk mengajar anak-anak. Kesegeraan itu penting. Contohnya, stop, think, and act kindly. Jadi kalau kita masukkan situasi anak-anak itu berabut-rabut bertarik-tarik rambut karena mau satu permainan saja. Stop them. Dorang stop lah. Ajak dorang untuk berpikir. Why? Ajak dorang untuk berpikir. Henti sejenak. Kalau kau tarik rambut si Anu, apa berlaku? Gugur rambut dia, botak rambut dia kasih tahu cikgu, dia kasih tahu parents. Itulah the thinking happen. So, terus dapat buat tindakan. Jadi sepatutnya kalau dia sebut-sebut yang negatif semua tadi itu, yang berlaku sekiranya dia teruskan konflik tersebut, now what we want to do? Act kindly. Salah satu daripada dia take turns. Bermain ikut giliran. Okay. So the outcomes here is the student, the children learn how to calm, self-awareness, how to be empathy person, and this all is a strong foundation for moral reasoning ataupun yang kita paham sebagai EI ataupun emotional intelligence. Saya sudah bagi contoh nih tadi kan. A child with a peaceful disposition will comfort a sad friend instead of teasing or take turns when playing without getting upset. Kalau sedih, pujuk. Bukannya mengejek pula. Ih, buruk muka dia. Bukan pula begitu. Kalau berebut, karena satu je benda tu, take turns. So in early childhood education, teachers helps develop this quality through mindfulness, activity story about empathy, and creating and calm classroom environment. Saya terulang yang tadi kan. Okay. So saya gariskan atau madam bagi gambar di sini yang menunjukkan overall about the children temperament. This is the children temperament, yaitu about the nilai-nilai, the value for each value tersebut. Serene maksudnya calm and peaceful disposition, lively meaning full of energy and enthusiastic. Introvert itu bagaimana dia more on solitude or inner reflection. Extrovert is outgoing and social interaction. Optimistic, positive, and helpful outlook on life. Melancholic expresses sadness and deep thoughtness. This we call melancholic. Spontaneous, act on impulse or without planning. Tiba-tiba buat sesuatu, tiba-tiba dia bercakap sesuatu. This one is spontaneous. Diplomatic, tactful and skill in handling conflict, and resilience, bounce back from adversity and challenges. And yang terakhir, cautious, wary and careful in approach. So this is the suggested learning activities for our kids, like story circle, read stories, emphasizing kindness and reflection, nature walk, observe beauty and discuss feeling of wonder. Kalau di sana terus kita nampaklah Maria Montessori punya teori kan. Peaceful journal, children draw or write about what makes them feel calm. Kita nampak di sini dalam teori James tadi itu kan about stages of faith development. moral dilemma discussion dalam moral Kohlberg ataupun Piaget. What should we do if we what should we do if a friends break a rules, ataupun ketika satu dilema apa yang perlu dilakukan. And art expression paint or create symbol of love, friendship and peace. So as the summary, the key concept what we learned today is spiritual development, connecting. It's about connection, purpose, and meaning of life, connecting to our own God, or generally uh, yang maha berkuasa. So moral development is understanding right and wrong through reasoning and empathy. And the role of educator itu facilitate children, give model, and nurture rather than preach. Bukan mengajar, tetapi tunjuk cara. And for all this, the outcome will be holistic, compassionate, and responsible individu. Oke, so saya bawa Anda kepada simple activity of the class untuk especially for the breath pernapasan, latihan pernapasan. Saya akan bawa Anda, oke sekejap ya.
If you're thinking of buying a property in Singapore and
If it's comfortable for you, let's begin by taking a gentle deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And with that exhalation, adopting a comfortable posture of awareness, returning the breath to its natural rhythm, and allowing your attention to gently drop into this present moment. And without turning or looking around, just lightly bringing into your awareness all that's in your surrounding space. And with your next out breath, allowing your focus to fall onto one specific object that's in your field of vision. And it's not an intense stare, so just maintaining it as a very soft focus. And this is a gentle practice, so if at any point the eyes become fatigued, allowing yourself to gently close them for a moment or two, and then reopening them, nice and easy. Noticing as any thoughts come and go, and just returning the attention back to your object. And now letting the focus zoom back out again, being aware of your surroundings, perhaps blinking a few times, allowing this cultivated focus to follow you into your next activity.
Oke, kita teruskan. So, apa yang telah kita buat sebentar tadi, sebenarnya Madam coba buat through video YouTube tersebut, a quick mindfulness micro practice. So the objective is to experience spiritual calmness and reflection before teaching. Flow dia begin with a 2 minutes breathing exercise. Reflect on one value to practice, for example, patience, kindness, and with a 1 minute gratitude sharing in chat. Nanti kamu sharing lah. Okay? And expected outcome, emotional regulation and appreciation of spiritual well-being in teaching. Oke, walaupun secara mudah few second only yang kita lihat tadi the breath technique, tapi secara pribadi Madam suka berkongsi bahwa dia memang kalau kamu belajar dan apply dia memang sangat baik, especially untuk breathing exercise. Tarik nafas panjang-panjang. Hold for 4 second. Hembuskan. Tarik nafas. Hold. Hembuskan. So, teknik yang sebegini dibuat ulang kali sehingga keadaan betul-betul tenang, sebenarnya akan buat kita calm, buat anak-anak murid kita calm down atau tenang. Kenapa? Sebab kita tahu kepentingan tarik nafas kan. Kadang-kadang kita berlupa bernafas. Kita terutama sekali apabila kita marah, kita timbak saja apa aja keluar dari mulut kita kan. Short breath. Napas kurang, oksigen kurang sudah dalam otak kita. Jadi pause, stop. Tarik nafas. Hembus nafas. Jadi dalam masa kita menarik nafas itu, kita menarik berapa banyak oksigen masuk dalam dada kita, dalam paru-paru kita, dalam jantung kita, dalam seluruh anggota badan kita. Dan kita hold untuk mengizinkan dia berperanan. Kita hembuskan. Yang kita hembuskan itu apa? Carbon dioxide. So berlaku berulang kali, kita buat berulang kali, actually akan memberikan kita ketenangan. Jangan pula kau pergi buat begini di tempat yang tidak kemas. Of course di tempat yang kemas, your own classroom. You apply kan itu kepada student. Ataupun sekarang you can apply in your daily activities. Kalau kau marah, kau tarik nafas, kau senyap, kau tarik nafas, hembus. Masa itu Anda berpikir, kalau saya buat A, terjadi A. Kalau saya buat B, terjadi B. Jadi kamu dapat buat pertimbangan. Demikian juga. Kalau kamu buat itu di depan pelajar, pelajar akan belajar something. Dan of course, they will apply it. Tapi jangan sekali ini saja buat, besok-besok kau pulang teriak. Tidak. Okay? So, we can teach this to our children actually, the mindfulness. Oke, kita sudah sampai kepada akhir. Jika ada soalan, kalau tidak ada, kalau ada soalan, Madam akan upload nota ini dalam e-tail, dan Madam juga akan buat activity tutorial secara online. Kamu boleh berchat di sana sebab Madam ada letakkan ini, dan ada letakkan juga forum untuk Anda kongsikan apa yang Anda rasa di dalam mindfulness. Oke? So, dari Madam itu saja. Thank you. Wishing you all the best. Thank you.